Last week on Teaching Out of the Box, we were inspired with Teacher Kate, a progressivist primary school teacher who helped us handle our primary school children learning at home, engaging them to do school tasks, and how we parents can support our children.
You don't teach children for just one kind of setup, one kind of method, one kind of strategy, because we know that children are unique individuals. There's no one way of teaching a child. There are many methods that you can use, but taking into account that it's age appropriate. That's what I always keep in mind, even now that I'm handling an older level. Of course, in preschool, what we do is we set some rules. The same with grade school. I impose. I really provided some rules that they have to have a paper and a pencil. Writing is vital, and even up to this time.
That's a good realization, no? Because right now, at this age, at this digital age, everything online, we think of educational innovations and redesigned learning experiences as something having to do with technology. But for pre-K and grade school teacher, what we're getting from you, Miss Kate, is that we can still have the basics, because the basics are the fundamental. The platform of delivering education might have changed, but there are things that you really just can't do without.
For parents, for teachers like me, and for also for the siblings who are assisting their younger siblings, I think the primary thing that you need to do is to really set rules, establish, so that the kids or the children can establish self-control. Number 2 is be conscientious. The concept now that we're doing is mindfulness. Number 3 is ignite their interest, ignite their passion. Number 4 is allow them to make mistakes. And the last thing, the 5th one, but the most important, is, of course, we come from different religions, different practices, but pray.
Here, Teaching Out of the Box, we do not only let out innovations and redesign learning experiences, but we also do reflecting from within, because as educators, as teachers, really what comes out is what's inside each one of us.
Inspirational conversations on education innovations and redesign learning experiences. Teaching Out of the Box every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. only on the Greatness Hub online channel. At the Greatness Hub, together we discover, we develop, and we dominate our greatness. See ya!
In life, there's greatness inside of you. Let's do greatness with love. Unleash it in the greatness of His love. Transformation that you can have, coming from God above. Welcome to the Greatness Hub. Welcome to the Greatness Hub.
Hi, great evening everyone. I'm Coach Carrie, and welcome to Teaching Out of the Box, where inspirational conversations on educational innovations and redesigned learning experiences are delivered by guests who are on the educational field day in and day out. Thank you so much for those who watched our first episode last Tuesday with Teacher Kate. We were able to make breakthroughs in education that will reshape the way we view teaching and learning in terms of guiding our primary school children how to read and not lose interest in the distance learning setup that we have now. Thank you so much, Teacher Kate, and we will definitely see you soon. This time, we will be dealing with high school. As a high school teacher for more than 10 years, I must say that this is a stage where most of the exciting things happen as our kids at this age are exploring and experiencing a lot of things that will mold them to become the persons that they want to be when they become adults. Yet, to fully understand how to help these learners at this age, we need to have a wider perspective on the available strategies in helping these learners succeed in school and, more importantly, succeed in life. To widen our horizons, we are very lucky to be graced by a high school teacher all the way from the United States. I hope that excites you guys. And who also teaches college, by the way. Let me introduce our guest for today's episode, Education Across the Globe. She finished a degree in mathematics and system analysis and a master's degree in STEM education. Let us all welcome Miss Kristine Kniaziewicz, or Miss K. Hi, Kristine.
Hi.
Am I right? Do your students call you Miss K, or?
So when I pronounce my last name, they're like, what? So they had no idea how to pronounce it. So they actually call me Miss K Savage because I make smart comments back to them, but they like absolutely love it.
Okay, but for everybody or for the audience of watching, Miss or Kristine is not a high school student. She looks like a high school student. She may even look younger than most of her students. Yes, so to start, like, let us go back a few years back, because I know it's just a few years for you. What were you like as a high school student?
As a high school student, I was extremely quiet. I just got my work done, and once school was over, I went and played soccer. So I was just very either academic, after that, athletic. Okay, so when I was in high school, it wasn't as challenging as it should be. I was actually kind of bored a bit, and I didn't get like any fun out of it until I started going to college, and I was like, oh, these classes are actually hard. I actually have to work harder to understand what's going on.
Are your experiences in high school is what led you to become a teacher?
Definitely, yes. I had one teacher that actually made the class very entertaining. It was even a math class, because usually the math classes were very boring. And they made it entertaining because of the fact they added personality in it. They actually had it where we weren't just sitting at the desk copying notes. We were actually getting up and moving around the room, which was extremely different from what I'm used to. But that class has stuck with me ever since.
So like this teacher you remember, and you're forever grateful to her, or is that the only reason why you became a teacher? Are there other reasons as well?
The only other reason I really became a teacher was because of students who are kind of like my brother. So my brother loved Iron Man. He wanted to become an engineer. He wanted to create his own robots and everything, but he never really had a teacher to support him in math. So he just kept struggling with math to the point he started hating it, and he practically gave up wanting to even pursue a degree in engineering because of it. And I thought that was kind of unfortunate, and I didn't really want to see that happen again.
That's great. So I know you're very much close to your brother, because like there's only two of you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then now, like, you've been a teacher for 5 years. What is your educational philosophy?
You know, I always kept getting asked this, but I never really knew exactly what my educational philosophy was. But mainly, I always believe that as long as the student wants to learn, I'm willing to teach them.
Okay. So like maybe you're into the whatever your student needs, or like however your students wants the lesson to be delivered, then you can give it to them. But of course, not really like entirely, because also you have to train them. Yeah, we have to train them to be
Yeah.
like discipline or something. That's why they call you Miss Kniaziewicz.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Kristine, and I will be talking about the Philippine education system and the U.S. education system, on how it's similar and on how it's different. Since about 4 years ago, Philippines has adapted to the K to 12 curriculum. So like the U.S. have been doing it for a while now. And yeah, so let me share my screen there. Okay. We will be talking about the Philippine versus the USA educational system. So for most of my audience, yeah, from the Philippines, we are very familiar now about the K to 12 system. So before, kindergarten was just like an option. Like about 4 years ago, it really has to be compulsory that a child has to be in kindergarten before she will enter primary education. And in the Philippines, primary education is from grade 1 to grade 6. That's about 6 years old for grade 1. And then right after, we have the junior high school. Previously, we just call it high school. First year, second year, third year high school. But now we continue grade 6 with it. So it's like grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, and grade 10. And then the additional 2 years, the senior high school, for which I have been a teacher for the past 5 years also. That's grade 11 and grade 12. So basically, kindergarten plus 12 grade school years. And then right after that, a student can have options to like work, because they're about 18 when they graduate grade 12. So they can work, or they can go to college. They can continue to have, I think Philippines still has 2-year courses, associate courses. They could also have the 4-year course, and it depends on the university, on the college. It depends on the course as well. So yeah, and then after that, usually people have like a master's degree, and then a doctor's degree, a PhD, or an EDD. In the Philippines, we have it. Basically that. But for doctors, of course, it would take longer. Another option that they could have will be to have a business. Or the fourth one, I think, is to have like a skills education, like the test. Like you can have a national certificate for which you can use when you like travel abroad or something, because like, as you know, Filipinos are known to be like workers that are spread across the world, and they are like known to be like good workers, like hardworking people. So very in demand in many fields. Kristine, do you have any question about the Philippine education system?
So what are the times for each section that a student's going to be in school? Like what time do they start, and then what time do they end?
For kindergarten, I think they're in school for maybe 2 hours to a maximum maybe of 4 hours. Because yeah, there's usually like a morning shift or an afternoon shift. In the primary education, grades 1, 2, or 3 have shorter classes. But then when they go to grade 4, 5, and 6, it's like 7:30 to 4:30. Maybe it varies in other schools. For junior high school, it's 7:30 to 4:30, similar to senior high school. So Kristine was able to like experience all that when she came into the Philippines last 2019, and she was like, I remember you commented like, oh, that's longer hours.
Yeah.
Because like in the US, you have shorter hours, right, for school? Maybe about 8, and then you end at about 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like she was surprised because like when she was here in the Philippines, we were like together for a day in my school, and she was like, oh, these are long working hours. And like the time that you were there, I had like a full load, and a full load for me is like the entire day. Maybe one subject break, but that was the entire day. And like Kristine was like, no, this is not a full load. I have enough time to prepare for the class, and I have enough time to like have the class. All right, so let's go on to and then in the US education system, so Kristine will be talking to us about this one.
Okay, so there is a bunch of bars.
Yeah.
The main one though is the very first one is the most common one, where a lot of people will start at kindergarten. Some parents will start earlier and do pre-K or pre-kindergarten, and kindergarten is age 5. After that, the student will go to elementary school for grades 1 to 5, so ages 6 to 10. And then after that, they'll go to middle school for 6th to 8th grade. And then they'll finish with high school from 9th grade to 12th grade. And basically, once they're done with high school, they're just like the Philippines, there's like multiple routes they can take. There are students who go straight into work, others go to college, some will go to a trade school to learn how to become like a carpenter or a plumber. And usually we will sometimes have students go even into the military to either join the Army, Navy, Marines, or Air Force. Okay, so the very last column, usually that's actually the route I took, where I went to kindergarten and then I was in elementary school from 1st to 8th grade. And basically that is when you go to a private or Catholic school, and the Catholic school can have you all the way from kindergarten up to 8th grade. And then once I was done with the Catholic school, I went to a public high school to finish 9th through 12th grade. Other three aren't that common. They're basically when students are jumping between private to public, and depending on the grade, they might end up in one of the middle three columns.
Okay, so thank you very much, Kristine, for that sharing. We just want to like level off everything. All right, so okay, was that your first option? Like, we already talked about that you wanted to become a teacher. It was in high school that like you really felt that you wanted to be a teacher. The degree that you got in mathematics and system analysis, it's not like an education degree, right? Yeah, you choose that degree not to become a teacher, but then like how did you transition to really becoming a teacher after?
So that's actually where my master's degree came in. Technically, I wouldn't be able to teach unless I took the master's degree. And I went through a program called the Woodrow Wilson Teaching Fellowship, where they take students or graduates with STEM degrees, and they basically train us to be able to go into the classroom and try to persuade or encourage students to also go for a STEM degree. It's very different from Teach for America though, because Woodrow Wilson will keep us for an entire year and we're actually guaranteed a master's degree, where Teach for America, from what I've heard, you only have 2 months to understand what you're doing and then you're kind of just thrown into a classroom.
This mathematics and system analysis is not so common in the Philippines, although there are those taking BS math. We call it BS math, Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, I think, but it's not so common. So like a graduate of mathematics and system analysis will be having in store for her or him.
So with that degree, I would basically be working for either a public or private company, and I would do a lot of the analytics in the background to help them out.
Okay, so data analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then right after you finish that degree.
Yeah, I went straight into teaching. Ironically enough, I actually wanted to teach in college because that would open up opportunities for me to do research or even go for my doctorate's degree. So I was like slowly introduced to teaching for the high school level and then started slowly shifting. So I'm teaching a class at the college level now.
Yeah. I'm so happy to hear, but because in 2019 we were just talking about it, that like both of us want to like teach college eventually, like yeah, and now you're doing it. That's I'm so happy. Although you went into college at the time wherein it's very different.
Yeah.
So okay, now what is your best memory of, like, we call it here face to face, what is your best memory of in-person interaction with your students?
I think the best one is if you were to step into my classroom, it's very chaotic, but it's a good chaotic because you're walking around the room, but you see the students are trying to figure out a puzzle or trying to solve a problem. And I think my most favorite one was when the principal actually walked in and he's like, "Where's Miss K? Did she just abandon her teachers?" And he started asking the students, like, did she just leave you guys? And they all of a sudden they're like, "Huh, I don't know." So they're starting to look around and I'm like, "So what's going on?" Because I'm sitting at a desk with another group of students and he's like, "Oh, I thought you left." I'm like, "No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'm just with this group sitting here."
Yeah, so like we were talking about it also before, and we were like, we don't do like traditional teaching. We really, it's really out of the box. It's different because we think students learn best at at a different setup than traditional teaching, and we try to find ways and means for them to be able to learn and really master the concept, because we're both the same. We teach junior and senior students, grade 11 and 12, and we teach a very easy subject, an ironically very easy subject. No, we're kidding. We teach math subjects, and these are the subjects that students fear. And we can really say, Kristine, right, that it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really difficult subject, but there are things and ways that you can do around it so that it will be easier for you to understand, and then it'll eventually be I always liken it to a game. Like when you know the rules of the game, then you can enjoy it. But then if you don't know the rules of the game, or like how the game is played, then it would be like totally foreign to you, or like you won't understand it or you won't enjoy it. Is that right? Is that how you think also?
Yeah, I honestly try to tie math in as much as I can to games. A lot of my students like video games, so if I can even design the lesson to be like level 1, level 2, level 3, so it actually feels like indirectly they're playing some sort of video game, they tend to be really involved in the class.
Liking the conversation that we're having here, and it's getting very, very interesting. But for those who are watching us, you can comment below if you have any questions about education in the US, if you have questions to Miss Kristine, to Miss Kate, to Miss Savage. If you have questions about her, so we can answer it. And then for everybody's information, for the audience, the Greatness Hub online channel, where we are airing Teaching Out of the Box, is brought to you by iHelp Coaching Business Solutions Incorporated. So for everybody's information, Teaching Out of the Box is just one of the shows in the Greatness Hub online channel. This is iHelp's official transformational online channel, and then later on we will also be producing movies, podcasts. So yeah, we are venturing into a lot of the digital things just to bring you what's exciting and what's new and anything that would be of help to anyone. So we are launching great flicks soon. We are launching great podcasts, and then the shows that we have on a daily basis will be then called Great Talk, and so on. We will be updating you every week for whatever updates we'll be having in our channel. The hosts of the Greatness Hub are all affiliate coaches. A mix of shows are prepared for all audiences of all ages. Here are some of our shows. So here are currently 35 shows and growing. We are almost 40. And in the Greatness Hub, together, let's discover and develop and dominate our greatness within. The Greatness Hub is like math. Great people plus great flicks plus great talks equals the Greatness Hub. So for Mondays, we have Usapang Ipon. For Kristine, that's Tagalog Kristine, about financial literacy, about talking about savings. And that's every Monday with Coach Jay, 6 to 7 p.m. Also, right after, there's Coach Artie for Your Hired. Anything about employment, any talks about getting hired or getting a job or preparing you to have a job, that's for Coach Artie. And for the Tuesday group, that's where I'm in. From 6 to 7, we have Teaching Out of the Box. But as of the moment, there are other shows before me and at noon. Right after me, later, you will be seeing Coach Jaren with her show Transform, talking about people whose lives have been transformed, have literally been better. And then at 8 to 9 p.m., we have Speak with Success with Coach Cess. And then on Thursdays, we have The Heart of Entrepreneurship with Coach Ellie. Anything about entrepreneurship. Tech Talks with Coach Arkale, 7 to 8 p.m. That's every Thursday. Every Friday, we have It's a Man Thing by Coach Simplai. It's about manhood. And Led to Lead with Coach Dave. Digipreneurship with Coach Ark. Every Sunday, we have Your Friend Online, Coach Jericho. And then 4 to 5 p.m., we have Coach Rex with Word Meditations. 6 to 7 p.m. right after, we have Coach Tim with his show Let's Talk About Love. And 7 to 8 p.m. we have Coach Carlos with God's Divine Prescription. It's about more on natural medicine. Yeah, so Kristine, which among the shows, I'll go back to this. Or what are the shows that you find interesting?
All right. Well, teaching out of the box because I'm in
Yeah.
it. I am interested also in TED Talks. So I have been seeing a lot of TED Talk videos. My school district even references TED Talk a lot for professional development. So that's one I'm kind of interested in.
I'm into TED Talks as well. So TED Talks might be interesting for you, but this will be solely more on the architecture side, because and you're part of the group now. You're part of the community, the Greatness Hub online channel. So you have access to these shows, just like when you need some. But of course, it's in a Philippine setting. But I guess we are venturing out of the Philippines as well. So it's not really just like the Philippines, although it's majorly the Philippines, but there are some things that are global. So although it will be like a bit difficult, because like you have to learn Tagalog. You have to like make it. I know I'm introducing this to Kristine, guys, because I know she wants to learn the language, although it's difficult to teach her, because like I'm also having a hard time learning the Tagalog. I'm from Cebu, so I speak Bisaya. But you should like watch. This could be your avenue to learn Tagalog. Maybe that would help. So Kristine, let's continue. We have already talked about a preview of like your best memory with the in-person interaction, how you became a teacher, and we also leveled the field with the educational system. Now let us go into some educational terms. This is like a trivia part for others, because I was fascinated with this too. When I'm talking to Kristine about anything related to school, there are times when we don't understand each other, not because of the language barrier or whatsoever. It's because there are some terms that we use in the Philippines that have other equivalent terms in the US, which are commonly used. Although I'm not saying that these terms we don't use in the Philippines. When Kristine and I talk about school, which we do a lot, especially when she's here, or even after we do chat, we still have like, what's this? I need to describe first the term so that then she can like know what it is. So these are just some of the terms that somehow one way or another we came across when we're talking. So the first one is when you submit something. So in the Philippines, we use you need to pass it or you need to submit it. But most of the time, it's pass. The common term in the Philippines is pass or submit. But then, Kristine?
So here in the US, we use the term submit, but we also say, hey, did you turn in the homework, turn in the assignment?
Yeah, so although Filipinos now are getting used to turn in, because Google Classroom uses turn in, right? So like, okay, so the next one is when we start a class in the Philippines, it's like a motivation activity. Although we also call it a warm-up, but most of the time it's called an energizer, or something that you do before a class, an icebreaker. And although Kristine was telling me that the icebreaker is at the start of the school year, the motivation activities we do at the start of each class. So the equivalent for that in the US is a do now or warm up. So in the Philippines, Kristine, as I mentioned, usually the most common motivation activity or an energizer that we have are like the Zumba ones. The YouTube videos about Zumba. You know, Filipinos love to sing and dance. So that's one thing that at the start of most seminars, at the start of most sessions, we do the Zumba. Although there are teachers who like do motivation activities related to the subject. But I'm just sharing that the common is Zumba. How about in the US? What are the common do nows? Or is it really subject based?
So the do nows and warm up are very subject based. So unfortunately, we can't start the class with a Zumba video.
You try that in your class.
So for do nows and warm ups, it's subject based, and it really depends on the teacher how they're going to open up the class. A lot of times with my do nows, I try to open it up with either a word problem or some type of problem that gets them already thinking like, oh, how can we solve the problem?
Would your students find it weird if you start a class with the Zumba?
Yes. They would be like, what's going on?
So let's go on to the next. This one, assignments, homeworks. This is something that we agree on. Okay, so Kristine, in the Philippines, we call physics, biology, math, art as subjects. And in the US?
So in the US, we can call them subjects, but we most commonly say classes or course. Classes for kindergarten all the way, well, yeah, technically kindergarten all the way up to high school, you're basically asked, so what class are you taking? And then once we transition to college, it's what course are you taking?
All right. So although sometimes you also use class, but we
Yeah.
commonly use subjects in it. So like courses in the Philippines are basically referring to what are you taking up in college. Although we call it a degree, but like most people ask, what course did you take or what course are you in? So that would be like, I'm taking up education or I'm taking up medicine. That's like the common response. So in your case,
In my case, we usually say degree, like, oh, I'm taking this bachelor's degree or this associate's degree, master's degree, doctorate's degree. So we tend to say degree on what we're taking.
yeah, all right. So that's a major difference. And then for like when we finish a subject, we get units. Like this is in college because in high school, like we don't have units or something. It's basically in college. So how many units are you already like in your bachelor's degree, or how many units have you taken for this associate degree or your master's degree? But in the US, you call it credits.
Yeah, we call it credits, like, oh, this calculus class is 3 credits or 4 credits. Hilarious enough, usually when we talk about units, it's in terms of what chapter we are in the textbook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
although yeah, we have that as well, the units in the textbook, but then the credits that you're mentioning, we also the most common is units. Although credits are sometimes used, but it's most common on the units. Now that we are into the units and the credits, Christine, a common difference, I mean, something new for the Philippines is the subject that you're handling, which has AP in front of it. Like in the Philippines, we have subjects like really subject title, subject description, but we don't have the AP thing in the Philippine education system. Can you enlighten us about you handling AP statistics?
So AP statistics, the AP basically stands for advanced placement, and that's usually the course where honor students will go in after if they want college credit. So they'll take AP biology or AP calculus, AP history, any of those classes, and if they get a grade or a score of out of 5, 3, 4, or 5, they are guaranteed college credit. So once they go to college, they already have it on their transcript. They already fulfilled that requirement.
Yeah, so what are other types? If it's not AP, then it's just a regular high school class.
Yeah,
There's
it would be a regular high school class.
and it won't be it will be credited to college. Is there just
Only
statistics?
the AP.
Yeah. There are statistics? So there are statistics class and there are AP statistics class.
Yeah, there's the high school level statistics, and then there's the college level statistics that they can take while they're in high school.
Also, they have to take the statistics class before they're taking the AP. Is that right?
It's usually encouraged they go that order so they at least have some sort of statistical background, but many students just jump straight into AP statistics. It's definitely a challenge for them if they don't have any stat background, because it's like they're seeing everything like brand new, and they're also at a completely different level, as in it's basically treated like a college level course. So the pacing is a lot faster.
Okay. So is that only for like math subjects wherein you have AP, or other subjects also have like AP?
Yeah,
AP,
so
or something.
the school I'm at, we have AP computer science, we have AP statistics, AP calculus, AP history, AP language arts, AP literature, AP biology, AP chemistry. Like it tends to continue depending on what degree the student's already planning for. That's usually the AP class they're going to target.
All right, I see. That's great. So then we now have into the distance learning, or I think even before pandemic, you are already exploring these online platforms. Am I right? So in the Philippines, Philippines, the most common ones are Zoom and Google Meet. And you mentioned that in your case there, you also have Zoom and Google Meet, although very rare you use it in your state. You mentioned to me WebEx. Can you like enlighten us about WebEx? WebEx or WebEx?
WebEx.
Oh,
Yeah.
WebEx.
So WebEx is usually used by companies. I'm using WebEx currently at both my high school and the college that I teach at. I can honestly say WebEx is not really user friendly as much as Zoom is. Zoom is definitely a lot more user friendly. We moved to WebEx because of a security breach with Zoom, so we all shifted to WebEx. We have not touched Google Meets. I've used Google Meets a bit. It's if I had to do like order them, I would say Google Meets is definitely the easiest to use, but I think it is very limited on what you can do with it. Then Zoom would be, again, the next one, which is very user friendly and it has a lot more to offer. And then I would like to say WebEx is like the extreme professional that even our students took a very long time to get used to because it's really not that friendly.
So how were the students adjusting to WebEx? WebEx, they were like more familiar with Zoom and Google Meet.
They were definitely a lot familiar with Zoom. Like there were a lot of colleges, places using Zoom way before WebEx. Like I said, WebEx is usually more of like what a company would use.
So it's like a learning management system, I think. Or just maybe a platform, maybe just similar to Zoom.
Yeah, WebEx is like similar to Zoom. It's actually competing with Zoom.
So like it's not the entire learning management system, so they still submit, they still turn in Google Classroom.
Yes, so that's why it's kind of ironic that we depend on Google for everything except using Google Meets. So yes, everything that they complete has to be turned into Google Classroom. Like you will see later on, I use Google's PowerPoint, Google Word Docs. Like a lot of it is Google dependent, but we use WebEx for mainly the video.
One of the good things about the pandemic, it gave the Philippines like the push to like go online, go digital. Because like before, like me, I'm into flipped classroom. I've already been trying it in my class, but with limited resources for me in school and for my students at home, I really couldn't go fully on the flipped classroom one. But now into the pandemic, we are, although there are still others that are like have no internet access in their place, no gadgets, but like it really has pushed the Philippines to transition into the digital. And it's nice that when you ask students what a Google Meet is, what a Zoom is, they really have maybe tried it at least once. They have an idea on what it is. And I hope this will continue on to like having the Philippines also like catch up with the progress in like the technology and in online teaching. Let's continue with classes. Okay, let's now go into the classes. Start with the Philippines. In the Philippines, we have now LSENs. So these are learners with special education needs that are in regular class sections. So they're not separated, although we have SPED classes. And then the regular classes, of course, these are regular students at the regular grade level. And then the first section are the sections wherein like the honors class. Kristine, tell us about inclusion, general, and honors class.
So they're all different words, but it sounds like they're very similar. Like inclusion is a mix of students who struggle a lot with some of the general ed students to try and support them in that type of setting. And then there is the general, which is basically where majority of the students fall into. It's just the basics. And then there's the honors for the more advanced students.
Okay, so going into like the distance learning that we have now, Philippines, the most common term for distance learning is online class, where students go into Google Meet classes or Zoom classes, and then of course they submit their outputs online as well. The submissions are done through like Google Classroom. In the Philippines, we have digital modular and printed modular. So digital modular students are those who can access the materials, the modules like on their phone, or some have gadgets. but cannot fully attend the online classes. Maybe sometimes they can attend, maybe sometimes not, because it depends on their internet access or on the signal or on the internet speed that they have at home. So although they can access, they can download. Printed modular students are those that really go to school, get the modules, answer them at home, and then return the modules after a set deadline. And then in the Philippines, sadly, as of the moment, we still don't have the face-to-face classes. Although there are some preparations already underway, but no news or anything about face-to-face classes.
So my school district basically just left remote learning. Remote learning is where everything's online, everything needs to be completed online, turned in online. There were some schools doing hybrid, and basically what hybrid is that they will have a certain number of days during the week where the students will be remote learning or online, and then the other days the students would actually come in and you would have them like spaced out and following all the requirements to be in person. There are, depending on the state, there are schools that are in person right now, but for the state I'm in, majority are, as of right now, either hybrid or in remote learning.
All right. So we have unlocked those terms. We have discussed a bit. Now we want to hear from you, Kristine, how you deal with your classes pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Okay. All right. So, classroom before pandemic. A lot of my lessons were discovery-based lessons, as in I would give the students a problem. There were times I would even give them a solution and they had to figure out, how did I get my solution? And it is possible because, mind you, this is with calculus students. So if I can do it with the advanced subjects, it can easily be done with like Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and Pre-Calc. So the students were constantly up and moving around the classroom. You can even see in the lower right picture, there are some students standing up, like moving around objects, even discussing with one another what is going on. And I always want to categorize the classroom as good chaos. So if you were to enter the classroom, it would be loud, but every single student was actually working on the math problem. Like there wouldn't be any like blasting loud music or talking about how their weekend was, even though sometimes that did happen. But they would always go back to talking and discussing about the math problem. The questions were extremely constant. If you can see at the bottom left, those are actually two students working together, and the one student is actually explaining to the other student how she got her solution, what exactly she did. So a lot of it is collaboration between the students. They're the ones leading the class. They're the ones leading the conversation. It's basically all focused on them, which I know a lot of teachers are kind of scared to just let the students run the class, but it's, once you set expectations, it's actually very easy to get them running the class in a way that is very beneficial to them. So classroom during the pandemic, the students are participating as a class, like entirely, instead of miniature groups, unless they're placed into breakout rooms. So that is something that WebEx does have, is where we can place students into breakout rooms and that'll be their groups. The unfortunate part of it is that students can't really move through the breakout groups. So if a group is struggling, they can't try to talk to another group unless they like text message or call a student. So a lot of the time it is the entire class together when answering questions. Classroom is definitely a lot quieter because students are either going to communicate by unmuting themselves, but majority of them are discussing through the chat. So there are like some snippets of chats. So the one on the right is actually two students discussing who has the correct answer and trying to figure out exactly why someone has the wrong answer. And the one at the bottom, it shows like a private message. So students can even private message each other, or they can even private message me. Some of them will private message either a question if they don't feel comfortable asking it out loud, or even like sending it to everyone in the WebEx session. But a lot of times they send really interesting private messages to me because they're kind of goofy like that.
Yeah. So this private messages, they're sending it to you through Google Classroom?
It's being sent to me through WebEx. So WebEx also has like a chat system. We are not allowed to use Facebook because of laws, because our students are considered minors until they turn 18. And then even when they turn 18 and they're still in high school, they're not fully considered an adult until after they graduate high school. So we are not allowed to communicate with them whatsoever through social media. Yes.
Okay.
So, how are students working during the pandemic? A lot of it has to deal with being consistent and setting expectations. And a lot of the expectations I've set were in the very beginning of the year, as in I told them exactly what I expect to see and hear when class discussions happen, when they're in breakout rooms, how to correct a classmate, how to admit they made a mistake. That's actually because of the fact I set those expectations. That's usually why a majority of my students have their cameras on during the classes, because I told them, I said, hey, you need to have your cameras on. This is an expectation for the class. And I just kept up with it. So if a student didn't have their camera on, I actually would just call them out and be like, please turn on your camera. And I just kept doing that to the point the student would get tired of being called on. So they just kept their camera on. Basically, the expectations, I started day one and I have been continuing it throughout the year. I definitely suggest starting at the very beginning of the year if you want to see certain things happen in the classroom. I'm actually noticing some of my colleagues struggling right now with cameras being off in their classroom or students just not attending because of the fact expectations weren't stated in the very beginning.
Okay, so you mentioned to us your pandemic post your pre-pandemic setup and then your distance learning setup as of the moment. So what tips can you give to high school students doing the remote learning at home and to parents who are maybe facilitating or helping these students do the distance learning at home?
The biggest one is contact the teacher. If something is happening at home, if an incident happened or you're not understanding it, as in the student doesn't understand it, or even as a parent, you're a bit confused with what's going on, immediately contact the teacher because we do have a lot of resources to help you out. I do know for a fact that when I've had parents reach out to me, I've sent them YouTube videos to explain it, and then they'll even watch the YouTube videos with their child through the class. My second tip is basically like tutoring. Go to tutoring. Definitely use Google. Google's going to be your best friend trying to understand the material. There's so many videos online. There's also websites. Just be careful with them because there is a website called Cool Math and it doesn't teach you math. It's just a bunch of computer games on it.
Okay.
And the third tip is remember why you're doing all of this. This is to ensure that you do have a better future. And hopefully this is the only time this will happen with remote. But the fact that we are able to get through with it means that in the future, we're more prepared for anything else that jumps out of nowhere.
Yes, I think those 3 tips are very applicable much here in the Philippines. That is to contact the teacher. That's what parents should do. And that's what students should do, to always communicate with the teacher so that the teacher can help you or do something about your current situation. And then go on Google or YouTube videos. There are a lot of things that you can access on the internet that can help you. Of course, just beware with other things because students just keep on mentioning, I'm on the internet, I'm online, I'm researching, but no, they're playing games. Yeah. And the last one you mentioned that to be focused, to be eyes on the goal, eyes on the prize. And even if it's very struggling now, it's very challenging, you still have to keep in mind that after all of this, it's still the learner or the student who's going to benefit out of all of this.
Yeah.
So, Kristine, let us go into something more personal. What did you discover in yourself, or what did you discover about yourself in being a teacher, both pre-pandemic and currently during the pandemic?
How limited my patience is.
We share that how we're very not we're not very patient teachers, but we're very dedicated teachers. That we can assure our students. We're very dedicated, and we're really doing everything for the students. That is something that we agree on.
I discovered that more during pandemic, so now I am slowly increasing my limit with patience. I'm training it so it grows even bigger.
So during the pandemic, we both, be kinder, be more lenient, be more patient with our students, and be more flexible. Although, of course, it shouldn't be just too flexible also, because
Yeah.
students tend to like abuse that, or like abuse the kindness or the leniency that we give. So, what can you say in your almost 5 years of teaching? What can you say is the highlight of your teaching career?
I really like the fact that I can be myself in the classroom. So in high school, I was shy, quiet, cared only about academics. But as a teacher, I feel very comfortable to like just talk, be myself, joke around with the students, be sarcastic, and they understand that I am being sarcastic. I also love the fact when they smile and I can see that they are actually having fun. I also enjoy when they want to gossip and then they see me at lunch and start gossiping about other stuff in front of me, and I'm like, you shouldn't be saying that in front of me in front of me, because I know those people. They're like, no, it's all right. We're definitely growing with the students. A lot of their slang I had to learn through them, because I was like, what did that person just say? And they're like educating me on like new slangs, new terms that they're now using when they just talk to each other. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I think everyone needs to be more open-minded and be able to adjust to whatever comes our way. Like this pandemic shifting quickly into online showed how flexible or even how open-minded some people, students, teachers were. Because I do know there were several teachers arguing about going online, and that did negatively affect the students because of the fact they started missing material because the teacher was too busy arguing about it. So definitely, I think shifting to a more open mind and understanding that as technology keeps growing and progressing, so is education. It has to keep moving forward as well.
With everything that you've shared with us tonight, Kristine, what really can you consider as your educational innovation?
So discovery based, if you were to go into the classroom, it's going to look like I'm not doing anything. The thing with discovery based is you're doing a lot of work in the background, as in you're actually predicting what situations your students might run into. You're also preparing yourself to just roll with it. So when you go into my classroom and you see how the classroom is running smoothly, like you'll actually see students start the do now, they'll even start the timer. They'll go into certain problems and start a timer for that as well. And they're basically running the class the entire time. Whereas it looks like I'm just walking around checking in to see if everything's flowing well. I've already predicted it, and I basically created the material so it actually guided them through the lesson. So discovery has the misconception of being lazy teaching, but you're doing a lot of work in the background. So I can honestly say if you were going to wing discovery lesson or teaching, the students are immediately going to catch on to it and start calling you out.
Like, Kristine, you want to share us something that you share in your classes just to keep the students like interested or motivated to like enjoy your math classes?
Yes. All right. So this is actually a Desmos classroom activity. You just sign in, join in, and you can invite your Google Classrooms into here. So basically, this is a marble slide for students to understand the transition of an exponential function. And what you will see as the teacher, you'll actually see the students' names, if they understood the problem, and if they did not understand the problem, and you actually see their progression. So right now, this game is actually paused. So I clicked pause on it, but I can tell you students love this. It literally is like a video game. Let me see if I could show this one. It's literally like a video game where they have to change the equation in order to figure out, okay, how can I collect the stars? And I can honestly say once I pause the game, I can see on their faces, I can hear it. They are all angry that I paused the game because they were having so much fun. So let's see, like I have a whole bunch of students. I can see exactly what they're doing with the equation. Like this student seemed to have been a little bit confused on how to start the equation. Whereas other students, if I were to click on it, I could see exactly what they changed. And I can even launch it to see like, okay, yeah, they did change the equation in order to collect all the stars. Definitely this I would use in the beginning of a lesson, like before actually teaching them anything. I would say, here, go onto this game, play the game for a bit, but make sure you're taking notes of exactly what you're changing on each equation and how it affects the graph. So that's actually how I introduce the transitions of exponential functions. I don't tell them anything. I purely have them discover it using this game.
Yeah, so students are liking it so much that they want to play it again and again.
They get, like I said, they get very mad when I pause the game. I'm like, all right, it's time to go to another class. And they're like, no, I want to keep playing this game.
All right, so thank you very much for sharing that. Me personally, I know Desmos only to be a graphing application where I also ask my students to like download it in their cell phones because like they can have it in their cell phones in the absence of a graphing calculator in the classroom, which mostly is a common scenario in the Philippines. And yeah, teaching exponential functions, all those kinds of functions really takes a toll on the students. And you shared something very interesting that I will definitely do in my class next year for general mathematics for the time when I'm discussing functions. And yeah, I hope students will in the Philippines will enjoy it as much as your students there enjoy it. So, Kristine, if our audience who are watching us right now or who are watching the replay have any like questions that they would like to ask you, where can they reach you or how can they reach you?
Well, they can reach me through you.
Or you can just comment below and then Kristine, you'll be notified once there are comments like I'll notify Kristine.
Yes.
You can put it in the comment box. Any questions that are not discussed. So Kristine, I am so happy and we are so grateful that you have graced us all the way from the United States of America. We are happy that we are able to find a time where we can talk, we can give inspiration to teachers, to parents, and to students, especially parents. Yeah, we could commend the parents who are handling their high school learners at home. They are not trained to do that. So I think in that way, parents somehow appreciate high school teachers. We are very much grateful that you have graced us in our show, Miss Kristine. We have indeed learned a lot from you, sharing on how distance or remote learning is done on the other side of the globe. And this gives our teachers, our parents, and students as well ideas on how we can also adjust here in the Philippines. Once again, great evening, everyone. I'm Coach Carrie, and this is Teaching Out of the Box, Episode 2, Education Across the Globe, where inspirational conversations on educational innovations and redesigned learning experiences are delivered by guests who are on the educational field day in and day out. You are watching this only on the Greatness Hub online channel. At the Greatness Hub, together, let's discover, develop, and dominate our greatness within. See you again next Tuesday at 6 to 7 p.m. for another episode. It will be all about college education. Stay tuned for the next show, Transformed by Coach Jaren, at 7 to 8 p.m. and for Speak with Success with Coach Says at 8 to 9 p.m. Once again, thank you, Kristine, and see you everyone next time. Bye!
The greatness of His love, transformation that you can have, coming from God above. Welcome to the Greatness Hub. Welcome to the Greatness Hub.
Join me for inspirational conversations on education innovations and redesign learning experiences. Teaching Out of the Box every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. only on the Greatness Hub online channel. At the Greatness Hub, together we discover, we develop, and we dominate our greatness. See ya!